It's Taco Tuesday!
Yo, what's going on everyone? Taco here, back with another New World video. Now I wasn't able to get an upload out last week since I just moved across the country to a new apartment, but now that I'm finally moved in, the grind is back on. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for more New World content, and I'm hoping to have my first YouTube stream sometime later this week or this weekend, so feel free to drop on by and say what's up. Today, I'll be sharing my quick guide and tips for the expedition Dynasty Shipyard. Similar to my previous guides, I'm going to keep this short and concise, really just pointing out the key mechanics and things you need to know, such as some hidden chest locations, and mainly just how to execute the boss fights. Before we get started, if you've been finding these guides helpful, hammer that like button, and if you do have any questions that I don't happen to cover in this guide, just leave them below in the comment section. Jumping into Dynasty, the location and where you start this expedition off may be one of the most annoying and difficult places to get to in the game. Deep in the far western parts of Ebonscale Reach is where you will enter this expedition, and I highly advise you guys that are traveling there for your first time to use campfires on the way, because I died once or twice trying to get there for my first time. So there are going to be some bridges that you can cross on your way there, and my biggest advice is just look for areas where you can kind of sidestep or dodge as many mobs as possible and really just try to avoid combat. Just like all the previous expeditions, there will be a repeatable quest, and you can find this NPC right next to the expedition entrance. Dynasty's recommended level is going to be 53, and the rare dungeon specific loot that you can get from the drops are going to be a bow, a fire staff, a ring that is great for ice damage for you ice gauntlet users, a rapier, and then a great axe. Moving on to my general tips, I've mentioned some of these in previous guides, but just to make your runs as efficient as possible, these are still going to be important for Dynasty. You're always going to want your tank to run ahead, leading the group and getting as much aggro as possible, really grouping and hurting up as many mobs as you can. And this is just really going to make clearing out those early rooms and areas that much easier and faster. I noticed with Dynasty that there are a lot of easy ways to get hit with significant damage from some of the mages. So just be mindful of where those healing or green circles are on the ground. If you are taking some serious damage, always try to roll or stay in close proximity to those so you don't have to waste any of your foods or pots early on. In one of the first rooms you enter, there will be a gold bar mage that is ice resistant, and I do believe this is the first time that there's going to be a mob that is resistant to a certain kind of damage. So if you're a mage like myself, just stick to using your fire staff, otherwise just carry on with DPS as usual. When you get outside into the next area, there will be a fire resistant gold bar enemy, so the same concept applies. For the most part, you're just going to be heading along the guided path. This expedition from a mission or story perspective is just sabotaging and blowing up ships around this island. So there's going to be these highlighted areas to plant these powdered kegs, then you will have to defend waves of mobs from getting close or defusing them. As long as you're attacking the mobs, they will focus their attention on you and you'll be good. The first part of this expedition that presents some new mechanics and a bit of a challenge is going to be once you reach the large commander and the two maidens. For this portion, you're going to want to have your tank take on the commander's aggro while everyone else focuses DPS on the two maidens. This will be the first time that you encounter the new attack mechanic that you will see later on at the final boss fight. The maidens will have a dragon animation fly around them, which causes immense proximity damage. Probably the coolest looking attack in the game thus far, but you just want to stay outside the range of that circle. They will also use a laser that you can run or easily dodge away from. For the commander, this guy's like a jumping bean. Dude will literally be jumping all over the place, so just keep dodging or keep moving if he jumps towards you. He mainly does a slash attack and will stomp in the area around him, so DPS from afar is really effective. Most of the chest locations are going to be along the path that you're moving towards throughout the expedition, and they're really kind of right out there in front of you, but I do want to show you two chests that I found that are a bit more hidden and harder to find. The first being right after you defeat the two maidens and the commander Chen, you will hop down into this bamboo area and find a chest in the back of this corner. The other hidden chest that I found is going to be after you have defended the powdered keg, right before the first boss fight with Isabella, behind the ship that you were at, a bit further down the pier, almost hidden in the water, is going to be a chest. Those were the two that I've came across. If anyone has found any others, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. Isabella is the first of 2 boss fights for this expedition. In my opinion, she's fairly easy to take care of. The tank just needs to grab her aggro and shield up in front of her. She is going to teleport a few times across the room, but her attacks aren't really anything too notable. She will spawn mobs 2 or 3 different times, and for the DPS players, once they spawn, just get rid of them as quickly as possible. It's more so the environment around you that you have to be mindful of. There will be fireball attacks from a distant ship that are going to send 3 fireballs across the sky down onto your area. So just be mindful of those. You can see them coming from afar, which makes them easy to dodge and avoid, and worst case, standing around or near a healing circle will help mitigate some of that damage. Also, musket mobs will spawn on the ship to the side of you. Usually you just want to have 1 or 2 DPS guys, focus them real quick and knock them out. But everyone else, for the most part, will just focus damage on Isabella. Usually when she speaks dialogue is when you'll see some of these more dynamic attacks or spawns. Eventually, she'll become invulnerable, which will start the next phase. There is a bit of a way to cheese it, but I do recommend this method. In the back right corner, group up with all of your members and she'll send these 2 dogs out of their cages. By having your whole squad grouped up in that back corner, you'll be able to do damage to the dog that is in the closest cage to you. And the dog in the far cage will be too far away and actually won't come over. This allows you to just focus on 1 dog at a time and really makes this part a lot easier. The final boss and last part of this expedition will be Empress Zhou. For Empress Zhou, there are several different attack mechanics that you should know prior to entering the room for combat. The first attack being the circular dragon attack that the Maidens showed earlier on, where the dragon goes around the boss in a circle, causing serious proximity damage. The next attack is a wave, similar to what we saw in Starstone, where the waves come towards you and you're just going to want to dodge to avoid damage. The other attack, she will focus on someone and send a dragon in a line towards them. You will kind of see the purple light outline coming towards you, so just dodge or avoid that area. The other dragon attack I've heard people refer to as the cone. Essentially, the dragon is going to spin up around the boss and breathe fire onto nearby players. With that in mind, for the first phase, you'll just focus all damage on the Empress. After doing sufficient damage, she will soar up and become invulnerable for that period, which will start the second phase. Here, she's going to spawn mobs, which you'll take care of relatively quickly, they're not too much, and then she will begin spawning pillars around the room. Now, the pillars take a solid amount of damage to destroy. So far, for the groups and runs that I've done, we usually just destroy 1 or 2 of the pillars so that we can carve out a corner of the room that is safe. These pillars are all going to mimic the exact dragon attack of the Empress. For example, if she does the circular dragon, around all the pillars will be the circular dragon attack, meaning if you aren't careful and conscious of the pillars around you, it's easy to get caught in a damage trap. Usually in this phase, if you go down, you will fully die just because of the amount of damage that can be caused so quickly. My suggestion is to find a corner that either lacks a pillar in that area, or maybe it does have 1 or 2. Take out a pillar or 2 to give you more space to operate, and then just focus DPS on the Empress while being mindful of the area around you. If there is space between pillars, you can stand there and avoid damage also. I'll show you a bit of how to avoid the pillar damage, but this is really the most difficult part of this expedition. And really, it's completely normal to have people go down several times in this phase, especially for the first timers. So really just be patient. Once you carve out space for you, it really makes this stage a lot easier. That'll really do it for the Empress and finalize this expedition. Thank you all for tuning in, and I really hope you found this guide helpful. If you did, please subscribe if you haven't already, and hammer that like button for me. I hope you guys have a good one, and until next Tuesday, I'm out.